Okay, so let's unpack this. We are taking a deep dive into the very architecture of, well, a successful life, the underlying structure of our daily routines.
Exactly.
And this isn't just about, tips for getting out of bed early. We're talking about the mechanisms that create balance, sustained energy.
And most importantly, that psychological feeling of being in control of your own schedule.
Yes, that's it.
When we talk about routines, I think a lot of people dismiss them. They sound restrictive, maybe boring.
Right.
But the sources we analyze, they show that a well-designed structure really acts as a kind of defense system. It shields you from decision fatigue, from the chaos of just reacting to things all day.
You design the day doesn't design you.
That's the idea.
So our mission today is to cut through all the generic advice. We looked at these really comprehensive daily schedules from two different people, a full-time student managing all their academic demands, and a seasoned professional who's handling, high-stakes projects.
And we're zeroing in on the specific, consistent, and often pretty small habits they rely on, the things that help them transition smoothly between work and focus and rest.
We're looking for those non-negotiable anchor habits, the little nuggets of knowledge that explain why these simple acts give you such big results.
Right. It's the difference between just going through the motions and intentionally optimizing your 24 hours.
Okay, so let's start with the opening move, the crucial morning kickstart. We notice a slight difference in timing, but a significant one. The student gets up at 7 a.m.
A little more flexibility for classes.
Exactly. While the professional starts at 6:30 a.m., which suggests a need for, I guess, an earlier metabolic wake-up.
But what's immediately insightful is what neither of them does.
Which is?
Check their phone or engage with any external demands. Their first moment is all about internal preparation, both physical and mental.
A deliberate effort to manage that sleep inertia, that grogginess. And you see this play out in their very first steps. The student focuses on a physical transition. They take a moment to stretch and breathe before their feet even hit the floor.
Which they describe as a gentle way to begin the day.
Yeah, and it helps them feel more alert. It sounds so simple, but that's a huge physical shift.
It is. You're managing the transition from that, parasympathetic state of sleep to the sympathetic state of action.
Yeah.
And the professional. They achieve the same transition, but through hydration.
Right. Their first act is drinking a large glass of water.
It's a physiological cue. It's not just about quenching thirst.
So how is that a cue? Because for so many people, the first thing they want is coffee. Why water first?
Well, think about it. Your body has been without any fluids for 6, maybe 8 hours. So prioritizing water first thing helps kickstart your metabolism. It helps flush out toxins. It basically prepares your digestive system for the day.
I see.
The professional even frames it as the act that establishes the tone for the day ahead. It's psychological priming.
It's like saying, I'm going to take care of my physical machine before I even look at my to-do list.
That's it, exactly.
That commitment to physical prep first thing it's fascinating. So after they've gently woken up, hydrated, we get to breakfast, and here we see how that structure customizes itself to the needs of the day.
Right. The student, they need quick, immediate energy for morning lectures. So they opt for a light breakfast.
Yeah.
Something like oatmeal or toast.
Quick access carbs.
Yeah, to fuel those cognitive tasks without diverting too much energy to, heavy digestion.
Whereas the professional, who's probably jumping right into dense work, project planning, critical emails.
They choose something more substantial. Eggs with toast or a full smoothie.
And that difference is strategic.
Absolutely. The professional needs a slower, more sustained release of energy. The protein and healthy fats. It's meant to handle several hours of intense focus before they might feel that mid-morning dip.
So the strategy isn't just about what to eat. It's about analyzing your workload and fueling for the specific demands of your morning. But, okay, regardless of the meal, both of them share a critical organizational anchor before the real work begins. They both review their agenda for the day.
This step is the psychological barrier between, I'd say, calm and chaos.
How so?
By dedicating just 5 or 10 minutes to consciously process your priorities, you're dictating the flow of the day. You avoid that reactive scramble.
So when the pressure hits later, you've already got a blueprint for how to handle it.
Exactly. It shifts you from feeling hurried to feeling prepared.
That idea of planning as a defense mechanism is powerful. You're sort of building a fence before the flood.
That's a great way to put it. It's all about minimizing decision fatigue later on. Every task you prioritize in the morning is one less mental load weighing on you later in the day when your willpower is naturally lower.
Which brings us into the trenches of the day, the afternoons. This is where energy management has to get really tactical.
Oh, absolutely. This is when the body naturally wants to slow down.
And our sources confirm this. They describe the afternoon as the busiest or most focused part of the day.
It's peak cognitive output time, whether that's long study sessions or critical project meetings. This is crunch time.
And because it demands so much, the deliberate scheduling of breaks becomes, well, mandatory, not optional.
Yes, and they highlight that even if the breaks are short, just a few minutes, they're vital investments in sustained productivity.
The breaks seem to serve two different functions, one physical and one mental.
They do. Physically, the student uses the short break to stretch and move around.
Yeah.
That's postural fatigue management.
Sitting still causes all that muscle tension.
Right. So movement resets that, and that helps to keep the mind fresh, as they put it. The professional, on the other hand, steps away from the desk entirely to force a mental recharge.
They recognize that just staring at the same screen for hours leads to diminishing returns.
You have to change the input.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. The tactical light lunch strategy. This seems so counterintuitive. If the afternoon is your most demanding time, why wouldn't you load up on calories to fuel it?
And that, I think, is the deepest insight of this whole section.
Huh.
They prioritize sustained focus over feeling full. They know that eating anything too heavy is going to result in a big insulin spike. And that spike triggers the body to divert blood flow from your brain to your digestive system.
Which makes you feel sluggish.
And causes that guaranteed mid-afternoon energy slump.
So avoiding the slump is actually a higher priority than feeling satiated. It's an intellectual trade-off.
It's a cognitive strategy, 100%. They're prioritizing mental acuity. So they stick to light, healthy options. A salad or a sandwich for the student.
And the professional goes for a quinoa salad with veggies or a turkey sandwich.
It's a precise fueling mechanism. It's designed to maintain consistent blood sugar levels and therefore consistent focus.
That makes so much sense. So many people hit that 3 p.m. wall, not because they haven't worked hard, but because their lunch was too heavy.
Exactly.
So once they've had this tactical light lunch, how do they jump back into that high demand work?
Well, after that light lunch, they take a brief moment to regroup, organize their thoughts, and then they dive immediately into the major assignments or key projects.
Trying to knock them out, as they say.
Right, while they're still in that sweet spot of post-lunch productivity and minimized physical fatigue.
So they're essentially front-loading the heaviest cognitive lift into the window where they know their energy is most reliable.
And that reliability is a direct result of their morning preparation and their light fueling strategy.
It all really just boils down to control.
It does. By deliberately managing their energy through hydration, movement, light nutrition, they're sustaining control over their most focused hours. They're making sure the heavy lifting gets done efficiently before that natural fatigue starts to set in.
Okay, so as the intensity of the afternoon starts to fade, we move into the evening transition, the crucial rest phase. And the goal here is simple, but it's often so elusive for high achievers. Intentional unwinding.
And again, this unwinding process isn't passive. It's actually structured. They incorporate what you could call active de-stressing. After dinner, they'll take a short walk or do some light stretching.
This provides a physical release for all that postural tension that's built up during the day.
And a change of scenery, which is just as important.
Yeah, the sources describe this post-dinner movement as a peaceful way to close out the day. It sounds less like exercise and more like separation.
It is a physical delimiter. It marks the end of the on part of the day, and the next step is maybe the most powerful psychological cue of all.
The simple habit of brushing your teeth and washing your face.
Right. It seems so mundane, but the source really emphasizes the symbolic power of this ritual.
It's an essential anchor habit, a neural cue.
That's a perfect way to put it. This hygienic routine is described as feeling like pressing the reset button after a long day.
I like that. A reset button?
Psychologically, it's this tangible, non-negotiable step that consistently signals the shift away from the sympathetic nervous system, your high-stress activity mode,
and into the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode.
It's a predictable, reliable marker for your circadian rhythm.
And crucially, that final hour before bed is all about the deliberate down-regulation of stimulation.
Which is the hardest rule to follow in modern life. We all know we should avoid screens before bed.
But how do they actually enforce that discipline?
They don't just stop using screens. That would leave a void.
Oh, okay.
They immediately replace that stimulating blue light exposure with specific calming activities. They fill the void with things that actively promote rest.
Like reading a physical book, listening to soft music.
Or having a cup of herbal tea.
The herbal tea detail really stood out to me. The sources make sure to emphasize that this tea is caffeine-free.
Another small tactical choice. It's purely designed to aid the process of rest, not just a casual drink.
Everything is working toward one goal: consistent sleep hygiene.
The entire structure of the day is built to facilitate restorative sleep. The consistent bedtime around 10:00 or 10:30 p.m. ensures they get a full cycle.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, that consistency ensures the energy cycle restarts properly every single morning.
You can't maximize your focused afternoons if you haven't given yourself that deep recovery overnight.
It makes the whole structure feel less like a schedule of chores.
And more like an optimized energy management system.
It is. The routine is the container. It holds both the work and the rest.
And that's what allows them to stay organized and maintain that crucial psychological sense of control over their time.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening? The sources reveal that a balanced routine isn't about being rigidly, ceaselessly productive.
Not at all. Its success lies in the strategic creation of these moments to actively relax, to recharge, and to physically take care of yourself.
The key takeaway seems to be about customization and priority sequencing.
Exactly. Whether you need a light breakfast or a heavy one, the structure has to be custom-tailored to discover what works for you, what allows you to maintain the longest, deepest period of focus. The structure is just the framework for your highest energy state.
This raises a really important question based on what we've analyzed. The sources so heavily highlight the power of these simple, consistent physical actions. You know, the stretching, hydrating, the light lunch, that hygiene ritual.
All to proactively manage energy and minimize that inevitable slump.
Right. So if balancing your routine really comes down to minimizing the effort needed to recover from stress, what is the one habit, no matter how small, that you could introduce tomorrow to act as your daily neural cue?
Something that definitively shifts you from the high alert of the day into intentional relaxation and prepares you for that truly restorative sleep.